Access to the heart is not limitless. Once given without thought, it becomes a doorway for noise, demands, and exhaustion. But when access is reclaimed, something powerful unfolds, peace returns, confidence rises, and the soul begins to breathe again. The gift of being unavailable reveals the quiet transformation that happens when presence becomes selective and energy becomes sacred. Some connections fade, some doors close, and yet something far greater emerges: clarity, strength, and a self-worth that no longer negotiates. This is more than distance, it is liberation, and sometimes the greatest act of love is choosing who no longer gets close. Guarded doors are not built overnight. They rise from experiences that have stretched the heart beyond its limits. At first, openness felt natural, as if the world deserved unlimited access to presence, energy, and generosity. Eventually, the weight of unfiltered connection began to show its cost. People arrived with their noise, demands, and expectations, not realizing the impact they left behind. Peace grew smaller each time. Boundaries were ignored. Guarding the door became necessary, not out of coldness, but out of protection for inner calm. Golden peace is created when access is chosen rather than assumed. Allowing everyone into the closest parts of life once felt like kindness, but kindness without boundaries becomes depletion. Each intrusion chipped away at strength, leaving exhaustion in places where joy should have lived. In the quiet hours between obligations, a truth emerged: peace thrives only where access is earned. Restricting entry did not create distance. It created room for healing. That room became sacred. There was a time when availability felt like a measure of worth. The more present one was for others, the more valuable life seemed. Yet that constant presence drained reserves meant for personal growth. Running toward every call, every crisis, every emotional storm left little space to breathe. The absence of limits blurred self-identity. Recognizing this imbalance brought a quiet understanding that availability must be intentional. Golden peace begins with choosing what deserves attention. Guarded doors are not walls, they are filters. They allow in what nurtures and keep out what disrupts. Learning the difference between the two requires reflection, honesty, and courage. Some connections bring warmth and clarity. Others scatter energy until nothing meaningful remains. When chaos becomes familiar, peace feels foreign. But peace is the natural state once noise is removed. Protecting that state becomes an act of self-respect rather than isolation. Respect grows stronger when access is carefully curated. This transformation is not loud. It happens in subtle shifts. Conversations cut short when they disturb balance. Invitations declined to preserve emotional space. Responses delayed to maintain clarity. These small choices create boundaries that were once feared. Each decision reinforces the understanding that peace is fragile until defended. Guarding the door doesn't limit life. It enhances it. The world feels calmer when only the deserving come close. Golden peace is found in the moments when silence settles comfortably. No pressure, no expectations, no forced connection, just a steady calm holding everything together. Guarded doors protect this serenity by allowing time for reflection and restoration. With fewer distractions, clarity rises like a quiet sunrise. Thoughts become more coherent. Emotions settle, and intuition becomes easier to hear. This inner harmony grows stronger with every guarded choice. Harmony shapes a life worth protecting. People often misunderstand distance as indifference. In reality, distance is a method of preservation. When influence is filtered, there is less room for manipulation, guilt, or emotional burden. Creating distance from those who drain energy is not rejection, it is self-preservation. Guarded doors exist because peace cannot survive in environments filled with constant intrusion. Peace flourishes in intentional spaces. Those spaces must be protected from anything that disturbs balance. Some individuals approach with warmth, offering support and reciprocity. Others approach with hunger, seeking to take without giving. Distinguishing these intentions becomes easier once the door is guarded. Patterns reveal themselves quickly when access is not freely offered. Kindness no longer becomes a currency for exploitation. Instead, kindness becomes a gift shared only with those who treat it with care. This shift transforms interactions into meaningful exchanges rather than emotional transactions. Golden peace teaches the value of selective presence. Being everywhere for everyone once felt like loyalty, but loyalty without boundaries becomes self-sacrifice. When the door is guarded, presence holds more weight. Moments shared with others gain quality because they are chosen, not forced. The heart feels lighter, and the mind feels clearer when time is not spread thin. Choosing peace over constant availability becomes a path toward emotional stability. Stability nurtures growth. Guarded doors reveal who truly values connection. Those with genuine intentions respect boundaries and approach with care. Those seeking convenience walk away when access is limited. This separation clarifies relationships without conflict. Authentic connections remain steady. Shallow ones dissolve naturally. Golden peace grows in the absence of those who only valued access, but not the person behind it. That absence makes space for relationships built on depth and mutual respect. Peace becomes golden when it is no longer interrupted by emotional chaos. Guarding the door prevents unnecessary turmoil from reaching the heart. Life becomes centered around what matters rather than what demands attention. Priorities shift gently, moving towards self-nurturing practices and meaningful experiences. With every shift, peace becomes more stable. Stability turns into strength, and strength allows greater clarity. Clarity transforms daily living into a calm, intentional experience. The process of guarding the door teaches that not all discomfort needs to be tolerated. Some tensions are signs that access has been granted to the wrong people. Emotional burdens that once felt unavoidable now reveal themselves as optional. By choosing peace over chaos, each interaction becomes purposeful. Conversations feel lighter, decisions feel clearer, and boundaries feel easier to maintain. Peace settles into the environment as a natural byproduct of selectivity. Golden peace also brings awareness of environments that drain energy. Some spaces once considered familiar become recognizable as sources of emotional exhaustion. The more peace grows, the more obvious these imbalances become. Guarding the door means stepping away from places that no longer align with well-being. Walking away is not loss, it is refinement. Refinement creates a life built around alignment rather than obligation. Guarded doors reshape the idea of strength. Strength is no longer measured by endurance or tolerance, but by the willingness to protect inner harmony. The ability to say no becomes a powerful tool. Declining access becomes an act of empowerment. Each refusal strengthens the boundary and reinforces the value of peace. Peace becomes the compass, guiding every choice. Guided choices create a life filled with meaning rather than distraction. Golden peace encourages solitude without loneliness. Solitude becomes a healing space where thoughts settle and emotions recharge. In this quiet, a deeper sense of self emerges, unfiltered by external noise. The heart grows resilient, and the mind becomes sharper. Guarded doors allow solitude to feel safe rather than empty. Safety creates a foundation for growth. Growth turns solitude into sanctuary. When peace becomes golden, attention shifts from pleasing others to nurturing the self. Old habits of overextending and overgiving gradually fade. They are replaced by mindful choices that support emotional health. The more the door is guarded, the less guilt is felt for prioritizing well-being. Guilt dissolves when peace becomes the priority. Prioritizing peace reshapes identity in powerful ways. Guarded doors transform the way access is understood. Access is no longer something others take. It is something offered with intention. Only those who honor the space they enter are welcomed. This understanding elevates self-worth. Worthiness no longer relies on external validation, but on internal alignment. Alignment brings confidence. Confidence makes the golden peace unshakable. Golden peace thrives when the heart no longer feels obligated to be everywhere for everyone. The heart learns that its value does not diminish when it becomes selective. Selectivity enhances connection by focusing on sincerity over convenience. Relationships become richer, deeper, and healthier. The more the door is guarded, the more meaningful each connection becomes. Meaning replaces exhaustion. Guarding the door strengthens intuition. With fewer distractions, it becomes easier to sense intentions, recognize manipulation, and avoid emotional traps. Inner wisdom expands in spaces free from noise. Navigating life becomes smoother, as decisions are made from clarity rather than pressure. This intuitive strength becomes a silent guardian behind the door. Over time, it becomes second nature. Golden peace is not an escape from the world. It is a reclaiming of self. Guarded doors reflect a commitment to emotional wellness and personal alignment. By choosing who enters and who stays outside, life becomes structured around balance rather than chaos. Peace becomes a lifestyle rather than a fleeting moment. And once golden peace settles in, it becomes a treasure worth protecting every day. The knotted doors do not close life. They shape it, they refine it, elevate it, and protect everything that matters. Golden peace is the reward for choosing boundaries over burnout and clarity over chaos. In this protected space, growth flourishes, strength expands, and the heart finds a rhythm that feels like freedom. That freedom becomes the foundation of a life lived with intention and unwavering calm. Stepping back often begins as a quiet instinct, a gentle pull away from noise that once felt necessary. The world encourages constant involvement, constant availability, constant response, yet there comes a time when that rhythm no longer supports emotional well-being. Creating distance becomes less about withdrawing and more about reclaiming space. In that shift, a new form of freedom begins to breathe. That freedom carries a softness that feels both unfamiliar and comforting. It whispers of balance long overdue. Stepping back opens a doorway to clarity. The patterns that once blended into daily life become easier to see. Connections that drained energy reveal themselves with unmistakable clarity, while peaceful influences shine more brightly. With distance, intentions become easier to read, and truth begins to stand out from noise. This clarity does not announce itself loudly. It grows slowly, like sunlight spreading across a quiet room. The more distance created, the more peaceful the world begins to feel. The act of stepping back creates room for emotions that were once buried beneath expectations. Without constant interaction, there is space to understand what the heart truly needs. Feelings that were silenced by busyness finally have room to speak. This introspection is not always comfortable, but it is deeply necessary. Each layer of emotion, once acknowledged, reveals strength hiding beneath it. That strength becomes the foundation on which freedom can grow. Freedom grows naturally when obligations are released. Many responsibilities once accepted were never aligned with personal well-being. They were carried out of habit, fear, or pressure. Stepping back provides an opportunity to evaluate which commitments genuinely matter. By letting go of what no longer fits, life becomes lighter. That lightness invites deeper breaths, clearer thinking, and calmer emotions. Freedom thrives in the absence of excess. Stepping back also encourages self-respect. When distance is created intentionally, it reflects recognition of worth. No longer is energy given to situations that drain or diminish. Presence becomes a choice rather than an expectation. This shift transforms the way boundaries are viewed. Boundaries stop feeling like barriers and begin to feel like protection. Protection of peace, energy, and emotional security. That protection is the birthplace of personal freedom. The world often equates distance with detachment, but stepping back is an act of connection with the self. It draws attention inward, revealing parts of identity that were overshadowed by constant engagement. In quiet moments, forgotten dreams resurface and hidden strengths re-emerge. This reconnection nurtures confidence in ways external validation never could. With each passing day, the relationship with the self deepens, that depth supports freedom that lasts. Freedom is found when expectations lose their grip. The pressure to please, to perform, to respond begins to fade. Stepping back removes the need to meet standards set by others. Instead, life begins to revolve around what feels genuine and aligned. Authenticity becomes more valuable than approval. This shift empowers choices rooted in truth rather than obligation. Such choices expand the sense of personal liberation. Distance reveals the impact of energy exchange. Some people uplift through presence, while others drain through constant need. Without stepping back, it becomes difficult to distinguish the two. Space shows what the heart already knew, but could not express. By noticing the difference, relationships become easier to navigate. Those who respect the distance grow closer. Those who resist it fall away naturally. Freedom lives in that natural separation. Stepping back also exposes the habits that once consumed time and attention. Distractions lose their allure when space is created around them. Priorities sharpen, and focus returns to what truly matters. This transformation feels subtle at first, but over time it reshapes entire routines. Days feel calmer, intentions feel stronger, and life becomes more aligned with purpose. That alignment supports emotional freedom on a deep level. The freedom found in stepping back teaches patience. A slower pace reveals the beauty of stillness, the value of reflection, and the importance of steady movement. Rushing no longer feels necessary. Productivity becomes meaningful instead of frantic. There is grace in taking time to observe rather than react. This patient rhythm calms the mind and nurtures emotional resilience. Resilience strengthens freedom even further. Stepping back highlights the difference between solitude and loneliness. Solitude becomes a sanctuary, a place where thoughts settle and emotions heal. Loneliness fades when connection with the self grows stronger. This internal companionship becomes a source of comfort and stability. With time, solitude turns into empowerment rather than emptiness. Empowerment fuels deeper freedom, the kind that lasts despite external circumstances. Freedom expands when emotional burdens are released. Many feelings were carried for far too long: guilt, worry, obligation. Stepping back offers permission to set them down. Letting go does not mean avoiding responsibility. It means releasing what harms more than it helps. Each release creates more room for peace. That peace strengthens the understanding that freedom is not something granted by others, but something created internally. With distance, the mind becomes clearer. Thoughts that once tangled together begin to separate and organize themselves naturally. This mental clarity brings insights that were previously unavailable. Decisions become easier, and intuition grows sharper. The internal voice, once drowned out by constant noise, becomes easier to trust. Trusting that voice is a major step toward lasting freedom. Freedom is also found in the ability to say no without guilt. Stepping back teaches that not every request deserves an immediate or positive response. No becomes a tool of empowerment rather than a source of shame. Each refusal protects emotional space and strengthens boundaries. Those boundaries create an environment where peace can thrive. Peace is the core of personal freedom. Stepping back creates the opportunity to rebuild. Old patterns begin to break apart, making room for healthier habits and stronger foundations. Growth emerges from the cracks left by letting go. This rebuilding is steady, grounded, and intentional. Life begins to reflect inner values rather than external demands. That alignment becomes one of the purest forms of freedom. Distance brings a deeper appreciation for genuine connections. When access is limited, only those who value presence remain. These relationships feel richer, more sincere, and more balanced. There is no pressure to perform or pretend. Authenticity flows naturally. Freedom exists within relationships that honor individuality as much as connection. These bonds nourish rather than drain. Stepping back reveals what truly brings peace. Activities once considered obligatory may fall away, replaced by practices that restore the spirit. Time becomes a gift instead of a burden. Moments become meaningful rather than rushed. Peace grows from these changes, filling life with gentle strength, strength that supports enduring freedom. Freedom found in stepping back does not demand isolation. It invites intentional living. Each choice becomes a reflection of priorities rather than pressure. The more intentional life becomes, the more grounded each day feels. Grounded living creates emotional stability, which opens the door to deeper freedom. That freedom becomes a guiding force in every decision moving forward. Stepping back allows healing to unfold naturally. Without constant interference from external noise, the heart can repair and restore itself. Old wounds become lessons, and past experiences become stepping stones. Healing brings relief, clarity, and renewed purpose. Purpose shapes a freer, more empowered life. Empowerment anchors the heart in golden peace. The freedom found in stepping back is not a temporary retreat. It is a lifelong shift. It transforms how energy is spent, how relationships are chosen, and how boundaries are held. It creates a life that honors inner truth above external noise. Through this newfound freedom, each day becomes more intentional, more peaceful, and more aligned. This is the quiet power of stepping back and reclaiming space, the freedom to live fully, calmly, and authentically. Sacred space begins as an internal whisper, a quiet recognition that peace cannot thrive where noise is constant. Energy becomes scattered when surrounded by demands that never rest, leaving the heart stretched thin between responsibilities and expectations. Creating sacred space becomes essential, not as an escape, but as a homecoming. This space holds the essence of inner balance, untouched by chaos and protected from intrusion. Within it, calmness rises softly. That calmness becomes the foundation for emotional stability. Sacred energy is delicate, shaped by experiences, thoughts, and connections. When exposed to environments filled with tension, it dims slowly, almost without notice. Restoring it requires intention, patience, and care. By withdrawing from what drains the spirit, energy becomes replenished. Strength returns to places once weakened by overextension. In this restoration, inner vitality grows. That vitality fuels a deeper connection to the self. Protecting sacred energy requires understanding its value. Energy is often given freely, offered without measure to people who never consider the cost. When access is limited, its worth becomes clearer. The heart learns to invest only in what aligns with its peace. This shift is not selfish. It is necessary. Without conservation, Even the strongest spirit can become depleted. Sacred energy demands thoughtful stewardship. Stewardship brings renewal. Sacred space is created through intentional boundaries. These boundaries act as invisible borders, allowing in what nurtures and shielding against what harms. Not everyone understands these borders, and not everyone is meant to. They exist not to separate, but to safeguard. Within these guarded walls, thoughts settle, emotions soften, and clarity strengthens. The mind becomes quieter, the soul becomes lighter, and purpose becomes easier to sense. Boundaries protect more than space. They protect well-being. Silence plays a powerful role in sacred space. Silence offers room for reflection, healing, and connection to inner wisdom. It provides a pause from external chaos, creating an environment where the truth can rise gently to the surface. In this silence, tension dissolves and the heart regains its rhythm. Silence becomes a friend rather than a void. It holds messages that cannot be heard in noise. Peace emerges through its quiet lessons. Sacred energy thrives when unnecessary attachments are released. Some connections serve only as distractions, consuming emotional strength without offering nourishment. Letting go of these ties frees energy for more meaningful experiences. Release creates expansion, allowing new perspectives to enter. The heart becomes more open to alignment and less vulnerable to depletion. This transformation allows growth to deepen. Growth strengthens the sacredness within. This inner sacredness is strengthened through intentional solitude. Solitude is not loneliness. It is a sanctuary where thoughts are honored and emotions are processed gently. In solitude, the spirit can breathe without interruption. It can stretch, heal, and realign. Sacred space is most powerful when solitude supports its formation. Through quiet moments alone, inner wisdom becomes clearer. Wisdom expands and guides life with greater clarity. Sacred energy requires mindful protection. Not every situation deserves emotional investment, and not every person merits spiritual closeness. Recognizing this truth allows energy to be used purposefully rather than drained unconsciously. Each act of protection reinforces self-respect. Respect for energy becomes a quiet declaration of worth. Worth shapes the way life is lived, with more intention and less exhaustion. Creating sacred space means choosing peace over performance. The world often encourages constant action, but true power lies in stepping back and preserving what matters. Sacred energy cannot flourish under pressure to fulfill every expectation. It grows in environments where presence is chosen rather than demanded. Within such environments, peace flows naturally. That flow enriches life in meaningful ways. Sacred space also reveals the difference between genuine care and disguised dependence. Some people approach with authenticity, bringing calmness and support. Others arrive seeking emotional fuel without offering anything in return. By observing these patterns, access becomes easier to regulate. Regulated access protects the heart from unnecessary strain. Strain fades when sacred space is honored. Honoring it becomes a lifelong practice. Energy becomes sacred when it is no longer offered to chaos. Chaos once felt familiar, almost expected. But sacredness requires stepping away from what destabilizes the spirit. Walking away from chaos does not mean rejection. It means choosing harmony. Harmony cannot coexist with environments that thrive on disruption. Sacred energy strengthens when peace is prioritized. That strength becomes unshakable with time. Sacred space encourages reflection on what truly matters. It strips away superficial noise and reveals authentic desires. In this reflection, priorities realign, guiding decisions that support emotional wellness. Old habits begin to fall away naturally. New intentions rise in their place. These intentions shape a life centered on calmness and clarity. Clarity becomes a guiding force within sacred space. Sacred energy deepens when the heart stops absorbing the emotions of others. Empathy is a gift, but it can also become a burden when boundaries are weak. Sacred space teaches the difference between compassion and self-sacrifice. It encourages caring without carrying. This distinction protects emotional equilibrium. Equilibrium creates a peaceful inner landscape. Sacred space fosters a relationship with intuition. The more protected the space, the stronger intuition becomes. It speaks through subtle feelings, gentle nudges, and quiet signals. When energy is scattered, intuition becomes difficult to hear. When energy is preserved, its voice becomes unmistakable. Following this voice leads to choices aligned with truth. Alignment brings harmony. Sacred energy grows deeper through selective presence. Being present everywhere dilutes connection. Being present intentionally strengthens it. Selective presence ensures that time and energy flow toward what nurtures rather than drains. This intentionality elevates experiences, making them richer and more meaningful. Sacred energy thrives in such intentional environments. These environments reinforce inner balance. Sacred space helps untangle emotional knots accumulated over time. Each moment of quiet reflection begins loosening what once felt tightly bound. Old wounds reveal their lessons, not to reopen pain, but to encourage healing. Through this process, emotional heaviness lifts, lightness enters gently. That lightness is a sign that sacred energy is restoring itself. Sacred space becomes a refuge when the world feels overwhelming. It offers a place to regroup, to breathe, to realign. Without this refuge, life becomes reactive and chaotic. With it, life becomes grounded and purposeful. This refuge offers comfort without dependency, strength without hardness, and balance without isolation. Balance transforms ordinary days into peaceful ones. Sacred energy is most noticeable in its absence. When drained, everything feels heavy, forced, and unclear. When preserved, everything flows more naturally. Creativity rises, focus improves, and emotions stabilize. Protecting this energy creates long-term peace. Peace supports joyful living. Joy grows effortlessly within sacred space. Sacred space and sacred energy form the foundation of emotional liberation. They allow a life built on intention rather than expectation, alignment rather than pressure, and peace rather than chaos. Protecting them is not a temporary choice. It is a lifelong devotion. Through this devotion, the spirit becomes grounded, powerful, and free. And in that freedom, life transforms into something deeply peaceful and profoundly meaningful. Being unreachable to chaos begins with recognizing how deeply chaos once influenced every corner of life. Noise from others' problems, demands, and emotional storms often seeped into spaces meant for calm. With time, this blending of energies made it difficult to distinguish personal feelings from borrowed ones. Stepping away from chaos becomes an act of clarity. It reveals what belongs to the self and what was carried unnecessarily. This separation opens the first doorway to peace. Peace waits patiently once chaos is removed. Chaos thrives on immediate reactions, quick answers, rushed decisions, emotional entanglement. The moment those reactions are withheld, chaos loses its grip. Creating distance interrupts old patterns that once felt automatic. Instead of responding to every ripple, silence becomes the response. That silence is not emptiness, it is strength. Through silence, peace begins to enter softly. It fills the cracks chaos once occupied. Being unreachable to chaos requires understanding how influence works. Some situations carry turbulence that spreads quickly to anyone nearby. Remaining open to these forces makes peace nearly impossible to maintain. By stepping back, influence becomes limited. The heart becomes less shaken by external storms. The mind becomes less cluttered by unnecessary noise. Distance becomes a shield that deflects imbalance. With this shield, peace grows steadily. There is transformative power in refusing to engage with unnecessary tension. Not every argument deserves attention. Not every crisis is yours to solve. Not every emotional wave requires a response. By choosing when to engage, the spirit gains strength. This strength is quiet, grounded, and deliberate. It protects the heart from becoming overwhelmed. It creates space for calm intention. Peace thrives in such intention. Chaos often disguises itself as urgency. It pushes for immediate involvement, demanding time and attention without regard for personal limits. By recognizing this disguise, boundaries grow stronger. Boundaries become a filter, allowing in what aligns with calm and keeping out what disrupts it. Through these filters, life begins to feel lighter. Peace becomes a natural state rather than a fleeting moment. This shift reshapes daily experience. Being unreachable to chaos does not mean avoiding responsibility. It means choosing responsibility that aligns with emotional balance rather than drains it. When responsibilities are selected thoughtfully, life becomes structured instead of chaotic. This structure creates stability. Stability gives room for peace to deepen. With deepening peace, even challenging tasks become manageable. The heart moves with steadiness rather than strain. Chaos loses power when it can no longer trigger predictable reactions. The moment emotional control returns to the self, chaos becomes less persuasive. What once felt overwhelming now feels distant. What once demanded attention now fades quietly. This emotional distance brings strength. Strength reinforces the belief that peace is possible, even in unpredictable environments. Peace becomes the anchor, not the exception. Opening to peace requires intentional choices. Peace does not arrive randomly. It is cultivated through daily actions that honor inner balance. Small moments of stillness, mindful breathing, gentle reflection, and selective engagement shape a peaceful life. These practices create a rhythm that nurtures emotional well-being. As this rhythm grows, chaos finds fewer openings. Peace becomes the atmosphere in which the spirit thrives. The more peace becomes familiar, the easier it is to sense when something threatens it. Discomfort becomes an indicator, signaling when boundaries need tightening or distance needs expanding. These signals guide decisions that protect emotional space. Following them creates confidence in personal intuition. Intuition becomes a quiet guardian. With its guidance, peace stays steady, even in uncertain times. Being unreachable to chaos means not absorbing energy that isn't yours. Many emotional storms originate outside, yet without boundaries they settle inside, as if they belong. Releasing these borrowed emotions brings a profound lightness. The heart begins to feel more open. The mind becomes clearer. This clarity invites deeper peace. Peace flows where emotional clutter once lived. Peace expands in environments where respect exists. When connections honor boundaries, influence becomes gentle rather than forceful. Interactions feel calmer, conversations feel healthier, and relationships become more balanced. Chaos struggles to survive in spaces built on mutual respect. Peace fills these spaces naturally. It becomes a quiet presence that shapes the tone of daily life. Being unavailable to chaos reshapes identity. Identity becomes less tied to external expectations and more anchored in internal truth. Instead of being pulled in multiple directions, life flows with greater intention. Choices feel aligned rather than pressured. Each aligned decision strengthens the connection to peace. Peace becomes part of identity rather than a temporary refuge. Opening to peace demands letting go of old emotional habits. Some habits were rooted in the need to fix, solve, or carry the burdens of others. Releasing these patterns brings relief. Relief creates room for healing. Healing restores what chaos once drained. As healing deepens, peace takes a firmer place within the heart. That placement becomes unshakable. Chaos often feeds on unresolved emotions. When emotions remain unprocessed, they become easy targets for external disturbance. By addressing these emotions with honesty, chaos begins to lose its foundation. Healing disrupted patterns reduces vulnerability. With less vulnerability, peace becomes stronger. This inner strength protects against further emotional turbulence. Being unreachable to chaos teaches the value of selective energy exchange. Not every situation warrants emotional investment. By choosing where to give energy, life becomes more balanced. Balance nurtures stability. Stability provides the fertile ground in which peace can grow. Peace flourishes when energy is directed with intention rather than impulse. As peace becomes a priority, the heart becomes more discerning. It senses what aligns with wellness and what threatens it. This awareness transforms decision-making. Choices become clearer, and paths become easier to follow. Peace offers direction without force. It guides gently, leading toward environments and people who support emotional harmony. Harmony enriches the entire journey. Chaos often thrives in environments where boundaries are loose. Strengthening boundaries reduces chaos access. Once denied entry, chaos begins to fade from daily experience. With its absence, the heart feels lighter and the mind feels sharper. Peace fills the spaces chaos once occupied. This filling creates a sense of emotional fullness. Fullness replaces instability. Opening to peace allows gratitude to grow. Gratitude shifts attention away from what drains and toward what uplifts. It highlights even the smallest moments of calm. These moments accumulate, shaping a peaceful mindset. With a peaceful mindset, chaos loses its influence. Peace becomes more than an experience. It becomes a lens through which life is viewed. Being unreachable to chaos transforms relationships. Interactions become healthier when emotional turbulence is no longer allowed to dominate. Communication feels clearer, and connections feel more intentional. Peace attracts individuals who value harmony. These connections strengthen emotional well-being. Well-being becomes a continuous state rather than a temporary feeling. The freedom found in being unreachable to chaos and open to peace reshapes every layer of life. It shifts habits, relationships, choices, and identity. Peace becomes the guiding force, creating stability where instability once thrived. This transformation does not happen loudly. It unfolds quietly, powerfully, and deeply. Through this shift, life becomes centered in calmness and grounded in clarity. And in this clarity, peace becomes not just an option, but a birthright, fully claimed. Boundaries built from self-worth are not shaped by resistance, but by recognition of what the heart deserves and what it can no longer carry. When self-worth strengthens, the need to accommodate every request begins to fade. The world once taught that kindness meant constant availability, yet constant availability often dissolves personal strength. As self-worth grows, boundaries rise naturally. They are not barriers, but expressions of value. Each one says quietly and firmly that peace matters. The earliest boundaries often feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. They disrupt old patterns that demanded constant giving and unending sacrifices, but discomfort signals growth. It reflects a shift from pleasing others to honoring the self. As these boundaries settle into place, emotional weight begins to lift. Life feels less crowded by obligations that once drained the spirit. A sense of clarity slowly replaces the confusion that comes from overextension. Clarity becomes the reward for choosing self-respect. Learning to build boundaries begins with observing what drains energy. Some interactions feel heavy, leaving a lingering tiredness that is difficult to explain. These moments reveal where boundaries are needed most. By acknowledging these feelings, self-worth is affirmed. This affirmation strengthens the desire to protect emotional space. With each protected space, the heart feels more grounded. Groundedness becomes a source of quiet power. Boundaries built from self-worth reshape relationships. Those who value respect respond with understanding, while those who relied on convenience react with resistance. These reactions reveal true intentions, offering insight into which connections belong in the future. Instead of breaking bonds, boundaries clarify them. They allow only the healthy ones to remain. This clarity brings emotional stability. Stability nurtures long-term peace. When boundaries strengthen, guilt begins to fade. Guilt once appeared every time a refusal was spoken or a limit was set, as if saying no risked losing approval. But with self-worth, the understanding grows that a boundary is not rejection, it is protection, protection of energy, time, and emotional health. This realization quiets the guilt that once held the heart hostage. Quieting that guilt opens space for empowerment. Empowerment grows through each boundary honored. Boundaries become more natural when the heart stops apologizing for its needs. Needs are not weaknesses. They are indicators of emotional balance. Ignoring them leads to exhaustion and resentment. Honoring them leads to peace. With self-worth, the fear of disappointing others becomes secondary to the responsibility of caring for oneself. When needs are acknowledged, boundaries follow effortlessly. These boundaries build a life aligned with balance. Balance strengthens inner wellness. As boundaries develop, communication changes. Words become clearer, more intentional, more honest. Rather than bending to others' expectations, the voice begins expressing truth with gentleness and firmness. This authenticity creates healthier interactions. It reduces misunderstandings and prevents emotional overreach. Expression becomes a tool for preserving peace. Peace becomes easier to maintain when communication aligns with self-worth. Boundaries built from self-worth protect not only emotional space but also mental clarity. Without them, the mind becomes crowded by the thoughts and expectations of others. With them, the mind becomes quieter and more focused. Overthinking softens when limits are honored. Stress decreases when responsibilities are chosen carefully. This mental clarity becomes one of the greatest benefits of boundary setting. It allows space for creativity, reflection, and rest. Self-worth reshapes priorities. What once seemed urgent loses importance, while what once seemed minor becomes essential. The heart starts choosing activities and connections that nurture instead of drain. These choices reflect a deeper shift, a shift from living for acceptance to living for alignment. Alignment becomes the foundation of each boundary. These foundations create a life shaped by authenticity. Authenticity becomes the compass guiding each decision. As boundaries strengthen, past patterns become easier to recognize. Many of those patterns were rooted in fear, fear of abandonment, fear of disappointing others, fear of being misunderstood. With self-worth, those fears lose intensity. They no longer dictate behavior. Instead, decisions arise from a calm confidence that respects inner truth. Confidence transforms old habits into healthier practices. These new practices form the structure of a balanced life. Boundaries built from self-worth create emotional independence. Emotional independence does not reject connection. It enhances it. It allows love without losing identity, support without absorbing burdens, connection without erasing personal needs. This independence strengthens relationships by making them more equal. Equality nurtures trust. Trust deepens the foundation of peaceful connection. Setting boundaries becomes easier when the heart understands its value. Value is not defined by how much is given, but by how well energy is preserved. People who respect that value become part of a more peaceful world. People who do not naturally fade from orbit. This natural separation is not painful. It brings relief. Relief clears the path for meaningful relationships. Meaning becomes the new measure of connection. Boundaries protect time as much as emotions. Time becomes sacred when self-worth grows. It is no longer spent on meaningless obligations or draining interactions. It is invested in growth, rest, creativity, and healing. This shift transforms daily life. Moments once filled with stress now hold quiet beauty. Beauty arises when time is honored. Honoring time strengthens self-respect. Boundaries built from self-worth reframe the idea of generosity. Generosity is no longer endless giving, but intentional offering. It becomes a gift shared with care rather than a resource exploited by others. This intentional generosity feels lighter, purer, more fulfilling. It comes from abundance rather than depletion. Abundance grows when energy is preserved. Preservation becomes a form of love. Self-worth teaches that boundaries are not demands, they are invitations. Invitations for others to meet you with respect, care, and understanding. Those who accept this invitation rise to meet your level of emotional clarity. Those who refuse reveal themselves without conflict. This understanding makes relationships easier to navigate. Navigation becomes gentle rather than turbulent. Boundaries built from self-worth shape the environment around you. Chaotic spaces become less appealing, while peaceful spaces become essential. The heart gravitates toward environments that support calmness. These environments nurture emotional stability. Stability creates a sense of safety. Safety allows the spirit to expand without fear. With strong boundaries, emotional resilience grows. Resilience emerges from the ability to say no, to walk away, to choose peace over pressure. It becomes easier to recover from stress and protect inner calm. Emotional turbulence becomes less overwhelming. This resilience becomes a quiet strength that influences every part of life. Strength becomes a natural expression of self-worth. Boundaries encourage self-trust. Each time a boundary is respected, internal trust expands. This trust reinforces the belief that the heart can protect itself. Doubt fades as trust grows. Trust becomes the foundation of personal freedom. Freedom allows the heart to move without fear. Movement becomes aligned rather than reactive. Self-worth transforms boundaries into a lifestyle rather than an occasional act. They shape how communication unfolds, how relationships evolve, and how decisions are made. Each boundary reflects a commitment to emotional wellness. Wellness becomes a guiding intention. This intention shapes a future aligned with peace and purpose. Boundaries built from self-worth create a life where peace is no longer fragile. Peace becomes steady, grounded, and unshakable. It is protected by clarity, strengthened by confidence, and held in place by self-respect. Through these boundaries, life becomes calmer, relationships become healthier, and the heart becomes stronger. And in that strength, the true meaning of self-worth shines, quiet, powerful, and completely transformative. Being out of reach is not about withdrawal. It is about rising into a level of self-respect that no longer allows easy access to your energy. When presence stops being automatic, something powerful shifts. People learn that connection must be earned, not assumed. The heart learns that peace matters more than constant availability. In that quiet shift, empowerment takes root. It grows stronger with each intentionally guarded moment. The empowerment of being out of reach begins with understanding that not every hand reaching for you deserves to be held. Some hands pull you backward, some drain your strength, and some only appear when they need something. Distance reveals these patterns with clarity. When you step back, true intentions become unmistakable. This clarity strengthens your ability to choose wisely. Choosing wisely becomes an act of power. Being out of reach teaches the spirit to breathe again. Without the weight of constant demands, inner calm resurfaces. Thoughts become clearer, emotions feel lighter, and silence becomes soothing instead of uncomfortable. This internal relief nurtures emotional balance. Balance brings a sense of stability that chaos can no longer disrupt. Through stability, empowerment grows like a quiet flame. Distance from noise creates room for authentic voice. When overwhelmed by others' needs, your own voice becomes faint. By stepping into intentional distance, your thoughts reclaim their volume. You hear yourself more clearly, your desires, your boundaries, your truths. This reconnection strengthens self-trust. Trust in your own voice is one of the purest forms of empowerment. It guides every decision forward. Being out of reach exposes the difference between appreciation and entitlement. Those who cherish your presence will respect your boundaries, while those who only valued your convenience will feel threatened by your distance. This contrast reveals the quality of your connections. Distance becomes a filter that separates the genuine from the opportunistic. Through that filtering, emotional freedom increases. Freedom deepens empowerment. Empowerment grows each time you refuse to shrink yourself for the comfort of others. When you stop making yourself constantly accessible, your value becomes clearer, not just to others, but to yourself. The heart begins to understand that its worth does not depend on constant giving. It depends on knowing when to say enough. This understanding forms the backbone of inner strength, strength that stands firm and unshaken. Being out of reach teaches a new rhythm of living, one guided by choice rather than obligation. Instead of reacting to every demand, you choose where to give energy. Instead of rushing to respond, you honor your timing. This rhythm turns life into something intentional. It becomes easier to move with calmness rather than urgency. Calmness becomes the true source of empowerment. Distance invites reflection that busyness once buried. Reflection illuminates what you have tolerated for too long, what needs to be released, and what deserves to stay. In this illumination, you discover how deeply you've neglected your own needs. By stepping back, you reclaim those needs without guilt. Reclaiming them strengthens emotional grounding. Grounding is a powerful form of self-love. Being out of reach shifts how you respond to conflict. Instead of absorbing every blow, you create space between yourself and the problem. That space allows logic to soften emotional intensity. It allows understanding to replace impulsivity with this new approach. Conflicts feel less consuming. They lose their ability to shake your peace. Peace becomes your center, not your reward. Distance makes room for healing that constant involvement never allowed. Old wounds resurface gently, asking to be acknowledged rather than ignored. With space, you finally have the capacity to heal them. Healing no longer competes with overwhelming responsibilities. It becomes a natural process, supported by quiet moments. The more healing progresses, the stronger empowerment feels. Being out of reach transforms expectations placed on you. People learn they can no longer rely on your immediate availability. They adjust their approach, their tone, and their demands. Some learn to show respect, others fade away. Both outcomes protect your peace. Protection becomes a daily experience rather than an occasional effort. Through protection, empowerment becomes habitual. Empowerment deepens when you release the fear of disappointing others. Fear once controlled your boundaries, making you available even when exhausted. Distance breaks that cycle. It teaches you that disappointment is temporary, but self-neglect has lasting consequences. Choosing yourself becomes easier. Each choice reinforces your emotional independence. Independence strengthens your inner foundation. Being out of reach elevates the quality of your relationships. When people cannot take your presence for granted, their appreciation grows. Conversations become intentional, not routine. Interactions feel balanced rather than draining. Connections evolve based on mutual respect. This evolution supports emotional well-being. Well-being builds a life aligned with peace. Distance from chaos reveals the beauty of stillness. Stillness is not inactivity. It is a moment where everything unnecessary falls away. In stillness, the mind quiets and the spirit expands. Ideas arise effortlessly, and clarity sharpens. This mental spaciousness is where empowerment thrives. It gives you the strength to move forward with purpose rather than pressure. Being out of reach reshapes how you give. Giving becomes meaningful instead of automatic. You choose who receives your energy and how much they receive. This selectivity ensures that your heart remains nourished rather than depleted. When giving comes from fullness, it enriches both sides. This enriched exchange reinforces your emotional power. Power circulates through generosity that doesn't sacrifice the self. Empowerment emerges through consistent boundaries. Boundaries stop being lines you draw and become principles you live by. They shape your choices, your interactions, and your emotional landscape. Boundaries tell the world that your peace is not negotiable. This declaration creates an environment where you can thrive. Thriving becomes your new norm. Being out of reach strengthens intuition. Without constant external noise, intuition becomes louder, clearer, and more reliable. You begin trusting your instincts with confidence rather than hesitation. Each intuitive decision reinforces your sense of direction. Direction guided by intuition leads to a more aligned life. Alignment magnifies empowerment. Distance allows you to reclaim your narrative. You stop living according to the expectations placed upon you and begin shaping a life that reflects your truth. This reclamation rewrites old stories where you played the role of the overgiver. In your new story, you become the protector of your peace. Protection is not isolation, it is identity. Identity rooted in self-worth sustains empowerment. Being out of reach transforms dependence into strength. You stop relying on external validation to define your worth. Instead, you rely on self-awareness, self-acceptance, and emotional clarity. These inner resources make you unshakable. Unshakable people are free in ways that cannot be taken from them. This freedom is the essence of empowerment. The empowerment of being out of reach is not about stepping away from the world. It is about rising above what once held you down. It is choosing peace over pressure, clarity over confusion, and self-respect over convenience. Through this choice, life becomes calmer, more intentional, and deeply aligned with your spirit. And in that alignment, you discover a power that is steady, grounded, and absolutely undeniable. Access denied is not an act of hostility. It is an act of reclaiming what was once freely handed out without consideration. When too many people are allowed into the inner world, the heart becomes crowded with noise that does not belong. Denying access clears that noise, allowing strength to rise where exhaustion once lived. This shift is subtle at first, but unmistakable in its impact. Peace begins to flourish in spaces that were once filled with chaos. that peace becomes a powerful restoration. Restoring power begins by recognizing where it was lost. So much of it slipped away during moments of overgiving, over-explaining, and overcommitting. It disappeared in the times when boundaries were ignored and the heart remained silent to avoid conflict. By denying the access that once went unquestioned, the spirit begins gathering its strength again. Each reclaimed peace feels like a quiet victory. These victories form the foundation of empowerment. Access denied teaches the importance of selective presence. When presence is no longer guaranteed, its value increases. People learn that reaching you is a privilege, not an entitlement. This shift changes how others show up. Those who once took advantage fall away, while those who genuinely care learn to respect your space. This respect becomes a filter that protects emotional well-being. Well-being strengthens the restored power within. Power returns when emotional doors are no longer left wide open. Leaving every entrance unlocked invited confusion, manipulation, and unnecessary burdens. Closing those doors brings clarity. The heart becomes less vulnerable to invasion. Thoughts grow sharper when not influenced by constant demands. Life becomes easier to manage. In this control, restoration finds a home. Stability begins to replace overwhelm. Access denied reveals who was drawn to your energy rather than your essence. Some individuals approached because of what they could extract, not because they valued connection. Denying access exposes these intentions with remarkable clarity. It displays who remains for genuine reasons and who vanishes without convenience. This revelation strengthens intuition. Intuition restores confidence in personal judgment. Power is restored when guilt no longer shapes decisions. Denying access once felt selfish, as if protecting your peace meant harming others. But as self-worth grew, guilt faded. Denial became a necessary act of self-preservation. Through this shift, emotional clarity replaced confusion. Decisions became easier to make. The heart learned that protecting itself is not a wrongdoing, it is a responsibility. Being selective about access creates emotional space. In that space, healing expands naturally. Old wounds begin to soften, without constant interference from external pressure. The mind becomes quieter, and the heart becomes more steady. This steadiness supports deeper self-awareness. Self-awareness guides choices that nurture growth instead of draining it. Growth strengthens restored power. Access denied transforms boundaries from optional suggestions into firm truths. These truths redefine how relationships form and evolve. Connections become more balanced, with mutual respect leading the interaction. Boundaries become statements of value rather than barriers. They communicate that your peace matters. They stand as reminders of strength regained, that regained strength becomes unshakable over time. Power is restored when emotional energy is no longer scattered. Denied access prevents others from tapping into your spirit without permission. The energy once lost through constant availability becomes conserved. When conserved, it fuels creativity, clarity, and direction. These qualities breathe life into goals that were once neglected. Restoration becomes a catalyst for growth. Growth becomes a steady companion. Denying access teaches the art of detachment from what disrupts peace. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means refusing to let chaos invade your inner world. By stepping away from what destabilizes, the heart stays grounded. Groundedness keeps emotions from being easily shaken. Stability replaces turbulence. Stability restores power to its rightful place, within you, not within the hands of others. Access denied reshapes communication. Responses become intentional instead of reactive. Silence becomes a tool of clarity rather than avoidance. Words are chosen deliberately, not impulsively. This transformation removes unnecessary conflict and invites meaningful dialogue. Through intentional communication, emotional strength expands. Expanded strength supports the restoration of peace. Power returns when you stop allowing others to dictate your emotional climate. When boundaries are strong, external negativity loses influence. Manipulation loses effect. Pressure loses its grip. The heart becomes sovereign again. This sovereignty is quiet but powerful. It transforms how you move through the world, steady, confident, and grounded. Grounding becomes a form of liberation. Access denied encourages reflection on what truly deserves space in your life. The heart becomes more aware of what uplifts, what drains, and what needs to be released. This awareness shapes decisions that support emotional wellness. Wellness strengthens presence. Presence becomes more centered and peaceful. Peace fuels restoration in every part of life. Restoration deepens self-respect. Being out of reach from harmful influences strengthens emotional independence. Emotional independence means relying on inner clarity instead of external validation. With this independence, decisions become rooted in truth rather than fear. This inner stability invites deeper peace. Peace makes power grow quietly within the soul. That growth becomes a reflection of self-trust. Access denied transforms expectations. People learn that your time and energy are not available upon demand. They begin to approach with intention instead of assumption. This shift creates room for respect to flourish. Respect forms the foundation of healthy connection. Healthy connections amplify personal strength. Strength restored becomes strength sustained. Restoring power also involves releasing attachments that once held emotional control. Some attachments were maintained out of habit or hope, even though they caused discomfort. By denying access to these patterns, the heart frees itself. Freedom allows healing to deepen. Healing reveals layers of strength that were previously overshadowed. These layers form a new identity, calm, resilient, self-aware. Access denied cultivates a sense of internal authority. This authority guides decisions with conviction rather than hesitation. It protects the spirit from internal conflict and external interference. Authority over your own energy becomes invaluable. It establishes a sense of ownership over your life. Ownership becomes empowerment in its purest form. Power restored is evident in the way you carry yourself. There is a groundedness, a stillness, a quiet certainty that requires no explanation. When access is controlled, confidence grows. When confidence grows, the world responds differently. You stop bending to fit spaces where you no longer belong. You begin standing firmly in your truth. Truth becomes your foundation. Access denied, power restored. These are not separate experiences, but intertwined transformations. Each boundary strengthens the other. With each denied entry, emotional strength rises. With each act of self-protection, peace deepens. And with peace comes a version of you that no longer negotiates your worth. You walk forward, more grounded, more aware, and more powerful than ever before. The gift of being unavailable is not about closing the world out. It is about opening space for the peace you were always meant to protect. When access is no longer guaranteed, your energy becomes sacred, your boundaries become clearer, your life becomes your own again. This journey has shown that not every voice deserves a place in your heart, not every hand deserves to pull you close, and not every presence deserves your time. By choosing who enters your world, you choose the quality of your own existence. May this story remind you that distance can heal, silence can strengthen, and selectivity can free you. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it's powerful, and in honoring that power, you reclaim the life that was waiting for you all along.